Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our live live stream event hosted by Creative Cubes in collaboration with leadership coaches Nadia Rennie and Karen Williams. Honored to say both Creative Cubes members at our newest location in South Melbourne. Unfortunately, Nadia cannot join us this evening due to being unwell. We hope and send lots of love to Nadia to get a speedy and fast recovery. I'm sending lots of love your way. I am Sade, and I lead Creative Cubes in People and Culture. I am thrilled to be here tonight with you all to embark on a deep conversation around having courage to transition with awareness. As we all see Australia reawakening from the COVID lockdown, which has been about 6 weeks now, it is imperative now more than ever to have real, honest, transparent conversations around how we're feeling. Our intention for this webinar tonight and for our fortnightly series, which will be graced by Nadia and Karen, is to create a platform towards our self-empowerment. Nothing is off the table. Our value for Creative Cubes is to give back. And if we can give knowledge and help you grow as individuals, we know we have done our part. And here tonight helping us give back is our amazing qualified thought-provoking leadership coach, Karen Williams.
Hi,
If you have live streamed with us before, you know the amazing talent in front of you. For those of you joining us for the first time, you will soon realize the wisdom and experience Karen possesses. You will want more and more, and trust me, you definitely will want more and more. Now to our about a little bit about Karen is I am lucky enough working in South Melbourne for most of my week in Creative Cubes. We have a couple of locations, but I do see Karen because she is a member of South Melbourne. Pretty much every other day when you're taking a very short break between your coaching sessions and having lunch very quickly, I get to have some insightful chats with her. She's always smiling and walking around and bestowing wisdom upon any bit of what you're going through. She's powerfully honest, impactful, and she's been a transformational leadership coach for 20 years, which is amazing and a lot to say about what knowledge she has. She works in Melbourne. She helps both women and men break through their hidden blocks, which we are all facing right now, no matter what industry or what you do or what's going on in your life, and your limits that we previously were unaware of, having been running in our lives for years. So a lot of the back end, I'll just not think about that. I'll not think about that, not think about that. Yeah. Karen's there to bring it all out.
Everyone's signing off right now.
She has gone through her own life journey with self-discovery, what made her deeply passionate about helping people and businesses through their own journey, asking hard-hitting questions, and help people get out of the autopilot, which many people I know, and personally myself, sometimes I don't even know how sometimes I even got out my front door. So we're all guilty of it.
Yeah.
And helping you gain a deeper awareness about why you do what you do, and how this can allow you to loosen your grip on what we think how things should be, which I think all of us right now are going through, specifically with COVID and basically everything in the world at the moment is what's going on. She works with both leaders, teams, and individuals to help shift their mindsets and transform their lives. And yes, if you have seen Karen on your Instagram feed recently, she was featured on Country Roads Women Supporting Women, which she looked extremely fabulous in, might I add. And I caught myself and I was like, is that Karen? Does she do modeling on the side?
Yeah.
You looked great. Exactly. Just add it to the resume, right? I highly encourage you, if you do not already follow Karen on LinkedIn, to do so. Every day, her LinkedIn posts give you aspirational information. If you're a leader or in business or working for a company, it's an insight to stop and just read a lot of her posts and her vlogs that she puts up. Very powerful, very insightful, and you take a lot away from those conversations. And I Thank you, Karen, for devoting now 3 nights to us all and gracing us with your amazing wisdom. The talks with you are always electrifying, and I know personally I take away a lot from all of our conversations. So thank you very much for being here tonight. For the audience, this is an open Q&A, and I highly encourage everyone to engage and ask any questions. It's a free-flowing conversation. We do have an intention to speak about what is happening and the intention of this actual event, but definitely open the questions to either that be work, career, relationship, finding love, basically anything and everything is on the table. Please submit your questions through the chat box, which we can then, I can then go into and able to just read them through to Karen, or raise your hand, either way, whichever you're comfortable with. But without further ado, I will like to talk a little and just go straight deep into the conversation like we always do. So to get started, Karen, when I was looking at the event's name, and obviously we've had a lot of insightful conversations, now this one being our third, I was thinking when we were actually putting this all together, I was like, what is awareness and why is it so important? Clearly, sometimes I feel like I'm a pretty self-aware person, but at times not so much.
The only
So,
one.
yeah.
Sorry, the internet just went unstable for a moment, so I just didn't hear that last piece.
Oh, just saying, why is awareness so important, and how can we start to create this habit of awareness in our life?
In the connection here, the Wi-Fi. So I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, now. Yep, that's great.
Okay, great. So why is awareness so important? So that's a really great question. And I love that we're doing this topic. Hello, everyone. And thank you so much, Sade, for that incredible introduction. I feel very humbled. And thank you so much to you and Creative Cubes for hosting these events. It's really my pleasure and privilege to be here to support however I can. I don't have all the answers, but let's dive in and see what awareness is all about. So when we're talking about, and also love to Nardia as well, and get well soon. We're talking about transitioning with awareness. Why awareness? Why does it help to transition through, whether it's returning to work or transitioning through from one job to another at this time, or transitioning through from full-time back to part-time hours or reduced hours, or transitioning through lockdown at home now into maybe one partner going back and still homeschooling. So there's lots of different transitions that we're going through at the moment. And that doesn't even take into consideration whatever personal transitions we might be going through, whether that's in our relationships or our health and well-being, financial, in all of those transitions. So whether in crisis or not, there's always a transition that we're going through. So why is self-awareness or awareness important? Because we're going to go through those transitions anyway. And if we go through, let's say, what I call asleep, which we can all be, 95%, we're 95% of program after the age of 35, according to neuroscience. So most of us are walking around, us human beings, thinking that we're bright and awake and conscious and, you know, thinking clearly about new ideas, when actually we're just repeating the same things as yesterday and the day before and the day and the year before that. So it's something that we need to be aware of and responsible for, because we think that we might be aware, but maybe most likely we're not. And what that means then is we're going to be triggered, we're going to react more quickly, we might take things more personally if we're not self-aware and we're going through a tough transition. We might make things mean something that they don't mean. And so we start telling ourselves stories based on our experiences of the past, based on what's happened to us before. For example, we might have been hurt before, we close a piece of us down, and then our brain starts looking like a radar for being on the watch out for those experiences again. So all of a sudden our awareness that might have been like this starts to minimize or reduce. And while we think that we know what's going on all around us, we've got a filter. We've got another filter and another filter. And so we're letting less information in. So we're less self-aware and we're just reacting. So I liken it to pinballs in a pinball machine. Us human beings, we're just kind of bouncing off each other, bouncing off situations, bouncing off circumstances and reacting. So without self-awareness or any level of awareness, we're going to just be kind of repeating the thoughts that we had yesterday. 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, every day,
That's
usually about the same 5 or 6 things. Okay, so it's just something to understand, that they like machines, when Brene Brown calls it meaning making machines, and we can't help that happening. So rather than deny it or avoid it, if we can be aware of it, we're going to be able to then move into these transitions with presence and with the opportunity to choose, do I want to act or respond in this way, or do I want to act and respond in this way? That's when we can be powerful, not only in our own actions and words, but how we communicate, connect, and influence others. So especially if we're leaders or part of a team, which we all are, whether that's our family or in our business, we're going to have an impact on other people. So self-awareness helps us to engage at a level where we're awake and can really listen to other people. We can ask for our needs to be met. We can share what's really going on. Without self-awareness, we're kind of we could be shut down and just kind of repeating the feelings from yesterday. It just leaves us limited. It's not bad or wrong. It just leaves us limited in what's possible, what we can create, and what we can create together.
You know, someone's just made a comment and said 60 to 70 thoughts a day. Whew, I'm above average. So
67,000. 60 to 70,000.
Yeah, 60 to 70,000.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because this self-awareness it's thrown around a lot. Like the topic itself, it's a pretty heavy topic once you dive deep into it. Like you perfectly explained it in just like a song just now. And I'm like, oh, that sounds so perfect. But when I think of it, I'm like, oh, self-awareness is, you know, knowing when you're reacting or how you're feeling at a certain point. And I think sometimes people can understand that they're angry and then they have to work through that emotional anger, but they don't know that it's a trigger, like something's triggered them to feel a certain way through, you know, practice of self-awareness. So perfect explanation. It's exactly how, I mean, I look at it sometimes, that you just kind of have to be awake. The perfect example is how many of us have gone into that autopilot state once, you know, this whole pandemic situation happened, just kind of going with what's in front of us and not really thinking through anything, and just like fight or flight stance. You just don't know what's next. So a question that's come through, which is a great one, is self-awareness ego driven?
Oh, that's a great question.
That's a great question.
So I'm going to read between the lines there. So I guess what you might be asking is because self-awareness requires focus on self, to understand self. So is that ego driven? In my definition and the way that I work, absolutely not. Even though ego I don't think is a bad thing. We do need ego to because that triggers into survival. Sometimes we need it to survive. But it also, a healthy ego is important when we're going for goals or striving for something, to achieve something, to stand for what we believe, those sorts of things. So ego with awareness is extremely powerful and engaging. So I think both equally, there's a place for both in this space of transition as we're going through transition. Happy to hear more about your question, but I don't believe awareness is ego-driven. No, I think awareness is a state of humility, of integrity, of the courage to take 100% responsibility, which is really challenging because we want to give 50% responsibility to everyone else, if not more, and blame sometimes and judge. So awareness actually is the opposite to that state of kind of ego-driven, I would say. If you talk about does that help?
Here, what does she say? She goes, oh, I got goose pimples. So you gave me a bit of goose pimples. It's interesting because the way you look at ego is your story. You've gone through so much leadership training and so much life, and so for some people, when I hear the word ego, sometimes it's self-fulfillment. It's very ego-driven. It's very about someone. And the way you've just framed that has just changed my own story about how I think about ego. So it's just the story in which I've been potentially saying to myself about that just the word, it's just a trigger of a word. It's so simple. It's just a 3-letter word, ego. But you've explained it so simple to say, it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative. You can use that in your favor. And that's a great thing, because specifically people that are very driven in life and in work and in personal fulfillments, their ego is driving that on a positive.
Yeah. And so ego is not only about achieving, self-fulfillment. It's about, it can help us serve others even more, because without that, that energy where we're striving for something, or, an entrepreneur or a business owner who's willing to go first, make the decisions, take the risks, fail first, all of that requires ego. But if we do it with awareness and we can own our ego rather than our ego owning us, then that's a whole different energy and a whole different style of leadership than ego driven that steps all over everyone.
Yeah, right. It's almost like, what's the reason why you donate your time to charity? Is it self-fulfillment that makes you feel better? Or is it when you go in and donate your time to charity that it gives a meaning to what you're donating to someone else, in a sense? That's kind of how I dissect that. As a leader, are you excited or have been scared during the pandemic? I have heard some say they're excited.
I've been all of it. I've been confused, overwhelmed, terrified, frozen, like paralyzed, upset, despairing, sad, all sorts of grieving, all sorts of different things, and have experienced and encountered and had conversations with people that in all of those different places as well. And also sometimes when we're one thing, the next moment or the next day we might be the complete opposite. So, one thing I've learned along my journey, and one thing that I work with leaders in my coaching and teams, is being able to own and name and feel and experience and express our emotions rather than deny them. And that's part of awareness as well, because if we can give space to our emotions, so kind of like breathe into them, then we can observe them and connect with them and navigate through them. Because if we don't do that, we're denying them, suppressing them, and they're just going to explode somewhere along the track.
Or on someone.
Yeah, on someone.
Or
someone. Someone's going to cop it.
Yeah.
So that's really, really important. And so I had someone ask me, is it okay to feel hopeful and excited? Absolutely. And be that shining light, but don't judge others for not being that with you. And so the leader was sharing as part of a senior leadership team the other day, I just want to be upbeat and I just want to be positive and look to the future. Then fantastic, be that and shine your light and let other people be where they are. And in your charismatic energy, that's just being yourself, not trying to force other people to be anything, they'll naturally gravitate to that when they're ready, and they might need some time. But that's the elegant state of influence in leadership, is allowing people to be where they're at, but holding space for them to rise. And they will rise.
Yeah. I find that's very interesting. So, and a lot of leaders would probably, leaders or anyone, and say we remove titles off of what we're discussing tonight, regardless of what you do in work or any of that. A lot of people can resonate with the self-awareness piece and just what you've explained that to sound like, which is really important. So I was going to dive deeper on one thing you said, but we're getting really good questions coming through. So I'll go back to that. I'll have to park it.
I love questions.
Yes, really good questions. What are your best methods for being calm in the storm?
It's going to sound really simple, but if you practice it, it can be life-changing. And it's a stop, pause, breathe. So keeping the calm. So there's a distinction here around, when we do yoga, even if you don't do yoga, let's just imagine doing yoga, because I don't do it regularly these days, which I would like to. But when we do yoga, it doesn't just benefit us when we're on the mat. And you would have heard this analogy before. It shows up in our meetings or in our conversations. It's this state of being where it supports us when we're out living our lives. The same as meditation, the same as time in nature. If you imagine not spending any time in nature, let's say for a whole month, you're just, you're only in four walls and you don't get any time in nature, you can kind of imagine and understand what that might feel like compared to if you're in nature every day, and whether that's just a walk in the park. And so that you can feel what that might feel like as a difference when if I'm in nature every day, that's going to help me in my day-to-day activities when I'm trying to feed the kids or I'm at work, trying to work virtually with people, whether I'm leading a team. So the calmness comes from the work that we do every other day before we get to those challenging moments. So keeping the calm is, what is your daily practice? Are you valuing yourself enough to practice something daily? And whether that's just taking 5 minutes in the morning to just sit and breathe and close your eyes, or to take some time in nature, or to do some exercise, whatever that is. Because those are the things, those are you depositing in the bank for when you have those moments where you could trigger, that you actually naturally come back to self and go, okay, I can stay calm here while the storm's going on around me. So it's the muscle that we build daily that helps us in those moments. And so that's what I do. And then the other piece is the bit I mentioned before, which is just stop, pause, breathe, and ask to take a few minutes out if it's a challenging situation. And what I do is I kind of just let myself feel. So I just take a moment to connect with myself and just breathe and go, okay, what's the feeling here? What's going on inside of me? What's being triggered?
Yeah, that's
help.
I think, definitely keep answering or re-asking questions if you want deeper meaning to what Karen is saying. But you made a really good point, and I kind of want to double tap on that daily practice, which is really great because it's repetition to remind yourself that you're looking after yourself, either that be, your coffee and you have a quiet moment for 10 minutes. What is your daily practice? What do you do every day that kind of centers yourself, that you just, sometimes if it's not there, it doesn't, your day may feel, disjointed?
Meditation.
Okay.
Meditation.
Love it.
And so when this situation first came upon us in Australia, I think I've shared it before that my first couple of weeks I was all over the place. And I went, hang on a minute, I've got lots of tools and lots of years of experience I should be able to navigate this in some way. So I reminded myself. And so I doubled down on my meditation and started doing 2 and 3 a day rather than just the one. And that's just really supported me. And I'm a huge advocate for meditation now that I've had a significant practice for.
Have you live streamed into our Rebel Monk meditation?
No, but I saw that advertised.
It's so good. And I'm not trying to derail this conversation. There's this, we have a meditation coach named Ziggy, and through Jade, which is doing an amazing job through our Rebel Monk, which is our yoga and wellness arm. And he's you just listen to his voice and you're just like, okay, this is what calm feels like. There's so many different things that people do. And for awareness as well, I think to be aware, you have to have gone, and sometimes maybe this is a personal experience, but it's almost like you've hit in a brick wall and you're like, all right, something's not working here. Something's not happening right, that I need to go on Google and ask, I'm feeling this way. And you start to become curious. And then these terms like awareness and, self realization and all these other, kind of articles will start to pop up and you become curious and you dive deeper. Say a person hasn't hit that brick wall moment. What steps do you think a person needs to take to start to become self-aware? Before
they've hit the brick wall moment? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, maybe for me personally, maybe I hit a brick wall where I was like, look, I'm stressed, or I'm consistently feeling this emotion time and time again. I need to do something about it.
So I'm going to draw on the board, which is why I've got a white background behind me.
Love it. Yeah.
That's just what I do. So hopefully you'll be able to see this. So one of the methodologies that my work is based in is be, do, have, right? So be, do, have, can you see that?
Yeah.
This is an ontological model, so the study of human being. And so what human beings usually do, and those who've worked with me before, if you're on the call, you'll have seen this, it's a good refresher and just check in with yourself. Human beings, what we do is we go, if I do all the right things and I say all the right things, then I'll have all the things that I want, and then I'll be the person, the wife, the mother, the father, the leader, team member I want to be, sports person, whatever, right? So as human beings, we go, I've got to do, so then I can have what I want, so then I can be who I want to be, right? But that's a chase that we never reach. We never reach this because it's I'll be happy when, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy when. And if you've ever caught yourself in that cycle, which is most human beings, we never get to a place of fulfillment because we're continually chasing. Now, there's nothing wrong with chasing goals and dreams. That's not the point here. The point is, who do I need to be to have what I want? So instead of do, have, be that we're always chasing, human beings are beings, human beings, not human doings, right? And our state of being is made up of our thoughts and our feelings, right? You with me so far?
Yes.
So if we can be aware of our thoughts and our feelings, that is going to then drive what we do and what we say. If we can take responsibility for that and be aware of that, and I'll come and answer your question in a second, I'm getting there, then that's going to naturally give us certain words and certain things that we do as far as actions without us having to worry so much about what we do and say. We're going to be driven by who we be. Then that's going to give us the results that we want, right? So if I know what I'm thinking and feeling, and I come into those, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling anxious, if I can tap into the feeling, then there's always a thought that comes first. You with me so far?
Yeah.
Yeah? So if I'm feeling stressed and I'm like, I don't know what to do, meditation is probably not going to help when you're almost at the wall. Our brain that's thinking so many thoughts that we shared before, it's like sit and meditate. I don't think so. Like I can't stop my mind if I'm in that state to sit in Zen position for 5 seconds, let alone 5 minutes, right? I'll meditate later. I know I should meditate, but I'll get to it. How many people are saying that? And I know that because most of my coaching clients are like that, and because I was like that for many years.
High performers, quick, keep thinking, next thing. Yeah.
And because our mind is designed to do that, yes, doesn't want to stop thinking. But if we can tune into our feelings, then we can start to understand the thoughts that are driving our feelings, because it's always a thought first, then a feeling. So if I'm feeling very motivated, if I'm feeling angry or stressed, usually we go, okay, that will drive, I'll stay in bed today. Or I won't exercise today because I'm tired, right? But if we can go, I'm feeling stressed or anxious, and go, well, what's the thought that's driving this feeling? Then I can shift my state of being, and then that's going to shift what I do. You with me?
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. And I think and just double tapping on most people, some people, what happens if there's an emotional block with feelings? So for instance, someone knows how they're feeling, but they don't know how to, are you saying it's self-internalized where you know your own thought and you understand how to work through that thought?
Well, that takes practice, and it's hard to try and get to the thought, because remember, we've got 60, 70,000 going around. How do I know what thought I'm thinking? The self-awareness is about, let me feel what I'm feeling. And human beings, remember, we're disconnected from our feelings from a young age, so we're living from the neck up. But if I can start to practice connecting with what I'm feeling, that's going to help me go, what's the thought that's driving this feeling? What's the thought that's having me feel disempowered? Right? What's the thought that's having me feel like I'm about to explode? And then from there, I can go, okay, I'm going to choose a different thought. And that's the thing that human beings have not learnt in school. We don't learn it anywhere, is that what distinguishes us from any other species is that we can choose our focus and choose our thoughts, but we don't learn that. So we go, oh, I feel this way, okay, I'll do this. I feel this way, so I'll do this. Rather than, actually, if I feel this way, what's the thought that's driving it? Then I'm going to choose a different thought that's going to change this state of being. I hope people are taking notes. And then I can act in a different way because I've taken control of my state of being.
No, this is a very good question. No. It's like, I'm like, I mean, personally, I love these things. And obviously anyone that's subscribed to this, this conversation tonight obviously is very engaged with this type of conversation. So I think
one of the things I wanted to give you, so I'll let you choose a question and let me just think. Because and to answer your other question directly was, listen for your own language. there's no accident what comes out of our mouth. So if we're really tuning into our language, we can catch our patterns that are holding us back and that are keeping us in the same feeling pattern of stressed or overwhelmed or confused or feeling like we don't know how to step forward. So that feeling you were talking about before, when I go on Google and go, what do I do now? And it says, take for 5 minutes. Well, no chance. But if we can listen to the language we're using, it tells us what's going on behind, and we can catch this and change this.
And I feel like most people know what they just don't want to face it. Like sometimes for me, I'll know I need to just slow down. And for me, going through what I need to go through, I just need just silence, and probably sitting there, not looking at my phone or emails would help me. But it's almost like, that ego addiction.
But here's the thing, we know that, but we don't do it often. Like we
Yeah.
know what we should do. So that's why awareness is the first step, but it's not the whole step.
Yes. There's so many layers to it. It's so simple, but I can see where so many layers come from it too. And a great question that just come through, just to dive deeper on that, what you've just written down is, would you say emotional intelligence is an arm of self-awareness, or is self-awareness an arm of emotional intelligence?
So I would say, great question. I would say, and maybe I think I know what you're talking about. I would say self-awareness is one pillar or one part of emotional intelligence. Because emotional intelligence is about listening, is about presence, is about the kind of how we communicate, what drives that, and our quality of communication, our quality of listening. So self-awareness is a big part of that. For me, we can't have emotional intelligence without that. So it's really more like one of the pieces of foundation. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and add and keep on adding if you need more elaboration, if that doesn't make any sense. And as well, I was going to mention, with the self-awareness and the emotional intelligence, there's so many layers to it as well. So for instance, say someone's like a super passionate person and they're so engaged with something, I would assume they're very self-aware with what is making them so passionate. But at times I see sometimes passion can actually, emotions can come into passion and confuse that. So if someone doesn't know how to navigate through emotional awareness, like where they become aware, they understand, oh, I'm actually feeling really unhappy. And I'm feeling unhappy because of all these thoughts in my head. And then all these thoughts trigger all these emotions. And then they emotionally either diarrhea out anything and everything that they say, or they don't know how to express themselves. What maybe steps would you tell someone to how to work through something like that?
So it can be challenging to catch ourselves, because what feels comfortable we think is right, when actually that's just familiar and it's what we've always done. So just because something feels, oh yeah, this feels like me, so therefore this is what I should do, maybe not. Maybe that won't serve you as much as something else might that feels uncomfortable or unfamiliar.
Right.
And so it's that awareness of going, okay, well, am I willing to step into what's uncomfortable or what's unfamiliar, rather than stay with the known and me tell myself that feels more like me?
Yeah, and it's almost kind of creating, what they say is that habitual pattern of bad things is, it's like if you're getting the same, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing, but what is it? Doing the same thing, but never changing. Yeah, over and over again. Yeah. And it's almost like, well, if you consistently go down a pattern of, maybe say you're dating or something, let's go into a personal situation. You're dating and you're consistently dating the same type of person. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is the same person I dated last, year. Yeah. How did this happen? You're almost now, if you're aware within yourself, you'll identify that it's something within you that you need to fix. Is that kind of how I'm picking it up? Is that that's kind of how you would pick it up, there's a self-awareness part to that?
Sure. And often for human beings, it takes a wake-up call, doesn't it, to start asking those questions. And sometimes it can take 5 of those relationships before we go, hang on, is it me? And so then we go, okay, a deeper inquiry. And sometimes we need an outside force or interruption to help us do that. And whether that's a book we read, or a seminar we go on to, or whatever coach we get, or, often advice from friends can be, challenging to for that to be your interruption. But we need an interruption, because otherwise, after the age of 35, as I said, we're just going to keep repeating unless
Yeah.
there is. And the older we get, it's like the records on the tracks on a record. The groove just goes deeper. And the older we get after 35, the more difficult it is to catch those patterns ourselves and then to change them.
Wow. So why did they say as to why that age 35? Is there just a habitual pattern at the point where 35 hits and you're like, that's kind of where you would peak? How does that?
Yeah. So, well, to be honest, 35, so between 0 and 7, our brain is in a certain state where, because I think it's earlier than 35, but the neuroscientists tell us 35. But 0 to 7, our brain is a certain place where we're just absorbing, right? So we make a lot of decisions from the ages of 0 to 7. And as adults, we're living out those lives based on the decisions made as a child. But then, so I don't know, I'm not a neuroscientist, so I can't speak to this question probably as meaningfully as you might like. But from then on, and then from 7 to 12, and then 12 to 15, and so on, our brains are at certain places, and we're developing what I call a strong suit. So we're making decisions along the way. 35, I don't know why it's 35, or it could be 33, but 35 is what I've learned. And again, I don't know the specifics of the neuroscience behind that. But whether it's 33 for me, or 35 or 40, it's about when you get to a certain age, the quicker that we can catch ourselves and shift and change it, the more likely our future will be the future we want to create on purpose, as opposed to a future that's a reaction of the past. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%. Definitely. It's amazing. All of it's just really great. So Courtney has asked, she does a bit of work with thinking traps. I've never heard that term. I heard that term, but I'm not, do you do any work with thinking traps?
I haven't heard of thinking traps. No.
Yeah. So maybe we'll have to do a bit of research around that one. That's a good one to kind of look into. I've just recently, because I'm obsessed with podcasts, every morning I start my morning with a podcast. And my most recent podcast was talking about the same concept that you've explained, was thoughts, and saying how you can wake up, and the power of a morning. And everyone hears like people waking up at 5 a.m. and all these ridiculous times and setting yourself. But what you've just mentioned is your daily intention, is creating that intention, either that be in the morning or the evening. It's that setting yourself up for the day. And they were explaining thoughts that you need to wake up. And the minute you wake up, which sounds a bit of work, but once you start just set your mind away from what thoughts will just naturally want to go back to the night before. Yes. So whatever those thoughts, if you wake up, and quite often sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm so tired, and I catch myself and I say it out loud all the time too. And I'm like, stop, don't say that. Yes. Even though I feel it, but it's my brain telling me I'm tired. That doesn't mean nothing. It does no service to me.
And I really invite people on the call to prove this to yourselves. When you wake up tomorrow morning and the next few mornings, there'll be like a few seconds where we go, oh, that's right, I'm this person, or that's right, I'm, I've got a sore arm, and we bring that into the next day, or that's right, I've got these problems. Yeah, and so we remind ourselves of who we've become, we know ourselves to be, and we take that into the next day. And as you say, there's an opportunity to set an intention there that's different to, which can be our own interruption to what was before, and take forward what you want and choose then what your intention is as a creation, as opposed to from yesterday.
Yeah, no, that's fast. Yeah, it's, and sometimes some people can think, oh, positive, thinking positively and thinking, but it's not anything. You don't necessarily, I mean, everything you're thinking should be positive, because it obviously enhances you, but sometimes could just be a different thought than that one thought that's not serving you the way it needs to be served. So,
but see, here, I'm not an advocate for positive thinking. I'm an advocate for awareness, responsibility, and asking for needs to be met, honest conversations, that kind of thing, as opposed to, I think and I'm not saying that you're saying this, but just a distinction we'll make while we're here is that one of the things I work with teams is around mindset. Know when you're below the line and own it, and then get in communication and have a committed conversation about how to get, let's say, above the line. So rather than pretending and barracking and cheer squatting that we're above the line all the time, when that's exhausting, be real with owning where you're at, and then who are you going to be now? What are you going to do about that? Yep. So it gives me permission to be human, to be real, and to feel safe, because a lot of my work is around creating safe and trusted spaces and building cultures of trust. Because when trust is high, business speeds up, people want to lean in, all of that. There's a lot of stats around that, around trust. So it comes back to awareness and knowing where we're at and taking responsibility for that.
Some people are saying you've given them the golden nugget for the month. So thank you, Karen.
I like
it. There's a business owner on, and any tips on how to separate emotions from work? Is this stop, pause, breathe a daily practice?
So emotions from work. I think rather than trying to separate emotions from work, allow yourself to have emotions. And if that's not appropriate at the time, for example, if you're leading a meeting and you're starting to become emotional and that's not going to serve people, then, stop, pause, breathe, take a moment, take yourself away and come back. But the denial of emotions is what makes us more emotional.
Wait, can we just stop there? The denial of emotions is what makes us more emotional. So you have a larger reaction when you keep on suppressing.
Yeah. And that can be true for men and women. And I've spoken with a lot of people over the last number of weeks, and many have said, I don't know why I'm so emotional at the moment. And you touched on this before, that human beings, we learn from a young age to disconnect from our emotions. We learn that at business, it's about our intelligence and our IQ and our technical skills, not our feelings and emotions. But we're feeling beings. And that can last for so long. But if we can, and which is why emotional intelligence, and Daniel Goleman says emotional intelligence in leadership and in business is way more important than the combination of our technical skills and IQ put together. So the emotional intelligence is about self-regulation, but that starts with understanding self. So rather than denying and trying not to be a feeling being, which you naturally are, start practicing being a feeling being, and then you navigate and dance and be dynamic with your feelings and emotions. And then you're going to be even more equipped with how to support someone else on their emotional journey when they're having a challenge at work, especially through these times. So get to know your emotions, I would say.
Not many people say that, which is great, because it's such a good way to start, that emotions aren't a scary thing, even though they might elicit a lot of your reactions out of your body, or you might have a bit of a breakdown, or you might have, it's debilitating sometimes, especially if you have been raised to not have emotions or talk about emotions, or say that you're feeling a certain way and not expressing that and not knowing how to express that. And then all of a sudden you become this adult that all of this emotions start to come about, and you suppress. Some people might react to another human being. Some people may not react at all, but suffer in silence, which quite often happens for so many people. And it's this habitual pattern that unless you understand that it's okay to get comfortable with your emotions, you have to kind of date them a bit, don't you? You kind of have to get curious about them.
Yeah, I love that metaphor. And go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, how do you do that safely without it going out, like people just they just fall off the rails because they're just like, oh my gosh, crying all the time.
Yeah. So, it's maybe at home giving yourself space to have, to express or to release. For men that I coach, sometimes it's about helping them bring those emotions up, and I'm all for, boxing bags and things like that. So helping, generate some emotion to start to feel in different ways. It can be, sometimes practices with women. I used to run women's circles. We'd go down the beach and scream at the waves. So it's just starting to, on purpose, start to create different kinds of emotions, because that sort of opens the valve a bit. and we start to get an understanding of what it feels like in our body, in our heart, to have emotions, because we are so trained and conditioned. It's part of the human condition, it's nobody's fault, to not be connected with our emotions, which then when we start to have them, when we get to 40 or 45 or 50 around midlife, and we start to have these things going on inside of us, we get scared of them. But if we can start to befriend them, then we're going to be more self-aware and help others, and we're going to be way more effective as leaders and as peers in a team.
Yeah, amazing. Some just chat comments are just saying, this lady is blowing my mind.
I hope in a good way.
As in a very good way. It's so insightful. And I keep on repeating myself saying that, but I'm just like, so there's
just so you know, I've been through all of this myself. So what I've learned is through trial and error over the many years for myself and coaching for many, many years. And I certainly don't profess to have all the answers, but I can just give you what I've learned and now how I coach, and hopefully that helps.
The best, as they say, if someone's gone through it, to never take advice from someone that hasn't gone through it, right? So that's the best type of leadership coach you can possibly get. And one last question is, well, I'll touch base on just some, maybe if you just want to give one recommendation podcasts that you might be listening to at the moment. Or do you listen to podcasts? Or
yeah, I do, but I'm kind of a bit left field with so let me see. I wanted to give you a bit of a model as well if I've got time, but I might not have time.
Yeah, no, we definitely can. I rather do a model, and then we can kind of just round
so Tom Bilyeu is one of my favorite, if you're looking for a real kind of someone to follow who brings on really powerful entrepreneurs. So his podcast is really good.
Sorry, what was his name?
Tom Bilyeu.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then Ed Metzer. I don't know if you know Ed Metzer. He's a very successful entrepreneur. I listen to him as well. And also there's a gentleman by the name of Corey who does a bit of meditation stuff, a young man. He's about 30, 35. Can't remember his surname, but I can send it to you and you can send it out to everyone. So that's kind of three. It just depends on what you're looking for. Who I listen to neuroscientists and energy kind of leaders.
Send those through too, though. Those are really good as well.
Yeah, just depends on where you're at and in your leadership journey. When I say leadership, I'm like you, Sade, it's about self-leadership, not just leadership with a title.
Yeah.
But I thought this would help when we're talking about understanding ourselves and each other. So is it cool if I do this quickly?
Absolutely. Yes, please do.
I think they're ready in your notebooks, a clean piece of paper. And love myself a whiteboard. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so when I was thinking about this particular topic tonight, I was thinking, okay, where are people at? Because some people are ready and some people are not ready. Some people are clear and some people aren't clear. So there's lots of different, some people are excited, some people don't want to go back because they're scared. Lots of different things going on when we're looking at transition. So if we look at here, clear, we're either clear, let's say, or potentially the other extreme is overwhelmed. Right, so we're thinking of where we might be energetically or where we might be in our mind. We could be either clear or the other extreme, overwhelmed. Yeah. And on the other axis is ready, or let's say not ready. So not very technical language, but ready. I'm either ready to go back, or I'm ready to transition, or I'm not ready. You with me? So, and again, every model is imperfect, and there's always gaps, but this is, I thought, might be helpful. So let's say if we're clear and we're ready, right? If I'm clear and I'm ready and I'm coming back into work, or I'm clear and I'm ready and I'm going through a transition in my relationship, then I'm going to be open and I'm going to be focused. Yes, if I'm clear in minded and I'm ready, I'm going to be open and I'm going to be focused. And those people, whether that's people coming into your business or if this is you or someone in your family, then they're in a position to lead because they're clear and they're focused and they're ready to go. So you can give them, let them make the decisions at home this week. Yeah, if they're feeling clear and aligned and ready to go, just go, you know what, you go. I need a break. Yeah. If we're ready but we're overwhelmed, then we're going to be confused and maybe putting on a brave face. Yep, so if I'm ready but I'm overwhelmed, I'm probably telling myself I'm ready but I'm not really. So I'm putting on this brave face, and those people are going to need support. So we've got to be looking out for those people, because they might be saying they're ready, like the duck on the water. Everything's fine, but underneath they're kind of stressed and anxious. So we've got to be looking out for them. They need support. Yeah. If I'm clear and I'm not ready, right? So I'm clear-minded, but I'm not ready to go back to the old normal. Then what I'm probably doing is I'm questioning and I'm challenging the status quo, right? These people, they're ready to go, but they're going, hang on, there's new ideas here. We want to engage them and go, what are your new ideas? Talk to us about what wasn't working before that we could do differently now. Is this helping? Are you with me so far?
Yeah.
The last one is overwhelmed and not ready. So this is when I'm anxious, I'm confused, I might be stuck. And these people really need to feel heard and validated. These people need just for us to hold presence, hold space for them, just so they can start to move through. Yeah. So you could kind of identify where you might be in one of these and go, okay, well, I'm here, I'm ready to go, but my family might be here. Okay, well, maybe I need to just sit and be with them and hear them and just validate them, not fix them or change them, just be with them. Or if I'm kind of pretending I'm ready, but actually I'm feeling overwhelmed, then what support could I get? Yeah. If I'm clear and I'm not ready, then I've got maybe have some good ideas that I can contribute to my business or to my team about what we could do differently. This helping?
Yes, definitely. And I think as well, so would you say in the context of transition with COVID, and say, let's pretend COVID wasn't a thing, would this be something that a leader or anyone in a business or in personal life could take that and
Yes.
look at and maybe put it in, because a business perspective as a leader, I can look at that and say, okay, I have someone in this corner, I have someone in this corner. I know my team really well enough that I understand them and I'm super in tune with them to call that out.
Yeah.
Say that so it wasn't in a business context, maybe a personal context. Could you say people could use the same model towards that?
Yeah. So like I was just saying, if I'm feeling really clear and I can start to see a future and I know where we're going, what decisions we need to make, but my partner or my children might be feeling somewhere else, then I'm like, okay, what support do they need right now from me? Because I could run far and run fast, but what support do they need from me that might be different? Or can I just sit with them and maybe let's just go for an ice cream today and I can just kind of be with them and ask them questions and just really hear where they're at. Or let me hear what their ideas are about what we might like to create as a family together or in a relationship going forward, because things need to change now. So it applies to business and family, it applies to any situation, but really it's about awareness, raising our awareness through transition.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's perfect way to round out the conversation this evening. Which are key takeaways is just understanding the awareness and the bits and pieces of being self-aware through, transitioning back into the workplace if you haven't gone back to the workplace, or transitioning in whatever capacity that may be for you. So, everyone has been putting their 2 cents in, but a lot of knowledge bombs from Karen. This is blowing their minds. A big wow for you. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. If you had to give just one key takeaway with transitioning, what could you tell our audience?
Wherever you're at is perfectly okay. If you're excited and inspired and hopeful, then be that. If you're fearful and anxious and scared or worried or confused, then that's okay too. And so have compassion, practice compassion for yourself, and know that whatever's going on in here is not the truth. It's just, it feels like the truth in the moment, and you can create whatever you want to create from here. And I know you read that everywhere, but I promise you, if you prove that to yourself, it's true. And so when we can manage and be aware of our thoughts through connecting with our feelings and our emotions, we become almost superhuman, because most people around us aren't doing that. So compassion, and then start to practice awareness and just be gentle with yourself.
Oh, the best. Thank you so much, Karen. This has been an absolute pleasure for myself, and I know everyone joining us as well. This is a fortnightly chat that we'll be having. Hopefully, you can share with your friends or family if this has been of service to you. Like I've said, the intention of these sessions and the real conversation is to give back, to acknowledge that Karen and Nadia and me, just kind of a bystander listening in as I can, giving back where we can. And sharing, as much as we can give to anyone joining these conversations, to make your week better, month, life, or year, or whatever it may be, just ultimately better in general. So just please follow us, and we will be sending out communications and information for our next event and topic around that. However, my email has been on those events, so please feel free to email me any topics or conversations you'd like to engage through with Nadia and Karen, so you can learn and engage as much as you can. But for now, thank you so much for enjoying this, or engaging in this conversation. I thank everyone for everyone's questions, and for devoting your night to us. And Karen, I'll give you the last bit of words to say thank you to everyone as well.
Sorry for interrupting you. Really thank you, Sade, for your wisdom and your presence and managing this space and bringing us all together. So thank you so much for your generosity and your graciousness. Really love working alongside you. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Creative Cubes, for the platform. I love my office at South Melbourne. I love the space here. I'm so excited for the future and welcoming people to this gorgeous, gorgeous space.
Yes.
And thank you everyone for joining and your questions. And I hope it's been of value for you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yes, and hopefully more buzz and people around and everything. Everyone saying thank you is really great to hold the space tonight, and I'll send your thank yous to you. But thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay safe, stay well, be nice to one another, and we'll see you soon.